Hey, stick around. We have some music that's going to touch your soul when we come back right after this. Welcome to Views and Vibes, everyone. I'm your host, Tariiq Omari Walton, and you know how I do. You know, every now and then I like to bring you some of the freshest talent in the D.C. area, and today's no different. Coming to you from New Orleans, Louisiana, please help me welcome Mr. Trey Thomas.
Listen. Thinking about the love we share, how seemingly deep you care. No sweeter love has passed me by. This is something that I can't deny. Your love is no fantasy, and sometimes it's hard to relate the way you satisfied my life. I sit and think and I realize that I found you. You're my first love, and it makes me say, your love makes me say, your love makes me say, your love makes me say, yes, you are my first love. I feel it in my heart. Yes, I feel it in my soul. The way I feel for you, I want the world to know. You're everything to me, and I love you more than anything. My love for you now overflows, and it makes me say, your love makes me say, your love makes me say, your love makes me say, you are my first my first love.
I could sit here forever, smiling at the thought of you.
Welcome back to Views and Vibes, everyone. I am Tariiq Omari Walton, and hey, I hope you enjoyed that first performance. We have another one coming up of Mr. Trey Thomas. Please welcome him to our show. Thank you for being here today, man.
Thank you, man.
Oh, that was a great performance.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I said you're from New Orleans,
Yes.
you know, but how did you end up in D.C.?
Like you said, I'm from New Orleans, and I left New Orleans to pursue my collegiate career at Howard University.
All right.
So I studied TV production.
TV production. So you didn't even go over there for the music?
I did not.
Okay.
I took a few music classes just for theory. Just I didn't want to lose, you know, what I wanted to do. But I knew, you know, as a musician, it can be a little shady, shifty.
Right.
So I needed something to fall back on. So I did TV.
So where does the music come from? You know, did you grow up singing in church? You know, was there just music playing around the household? How did that music get into you?
You know, I did sing in church. I didn't start until I was like 7. I think.
That late, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, 7, wow. Okay.
Right. A lot of people say they were singing at 3. No.
Right.
I started around 7. I remember my parents playing a lot of music, like Gladys Knight and the OJs.
So they weren't playing church music.
They weren't playing church
R&B.
music.
Okay.
No. They were like soul.
Okay.
So that's what I remember growing up. And then I remember around 7, I got a Whitney album and I got a Luther album.
Wow.
And I locked myself in a room and I studied those 2 albums from front to back.
Okay.
So I studied their tone, I studied all of that, and that's just kind of how I.
So when you came out the room, now all of a sudden you're a singer.
I didn't know what I was doing, honestly. Like when I look back on it now, I was like, oh, I gravitated to that because of the purity of their tones and all that good stuff. But I didn't know what I was doing. I just, for some unknown reason, I was just drawn to it. So I studied it.
Right.
So sometimes they're just innate things inside of us that just come out and we don't know why until later on. But yeah, I started that at 7.
So did you, from 7 on, were you continuing to pull in more musical influences and continue to sing from there, or I mean, how did that progress for you?
Yeah, then I started listening to Al Green a lot.
Oh, you listen to all the classics, man.
Oh yeah, I was listening to Al Green. But then I really, Luther's "A House Is Not a Home" was like my go-to song.
Right.
But
You're
then
the only one, man. I think there's a lot of people that listen to that song. A lot of babies were more born after that song.
That might be why I love it so much.
Right.
I don't know, and I don't want to know. But I think once I heard that song, then I started like going to listen to more of his stuff. So I really stayed on Luther for a long time. Luther and Whitney, I stayed on them. But it progressed to Al Green and Gladys. Even Patty a little bit. Like I was just into the soul of it. If it had a live bass line, I was on it. Like, I was.
Well, coming from New Orleans, I mean, that's where you were originally.
Yeah.
Were there any jazz influences in your life, any blues, or were you really just into the R&B?
Some blues.
Okay.
But in New Orleans, I was really, if I wasn't in church, then I was into theater and things like that. So I really didn't. Yeah, I didn't know soul, and I didn't really know jazz until I got to Howard.
Wow, okay.
When I got to Howard, that's when I had exposure to Ella Fitzgerald and like all the jazz greats. So then that's when I got into jazz. But growing up, it was really R&B and soul music.
So what made you go from listening to R&B in your bedroom and soul to actually being in front of audiences and singing? When did you actually make that transition?
My mom put me in front of church people. I remember the very first song that I led, I was 7, and it was Sin of My Joy. I was petrified, I was scared to death, and I probably really, really messed it up.
But I'm sure everybody still kept on playing, look at the baby up there.
It's like church is your first thing. So, yeah, I remember that. And from that time, I kept doing it. So I stayed in church doing that.
Did you learn to enjoy it at that point, or?
I
Did you
enjoyed it.
just feel like the pressure, like the people just telling you have to be up here and sing?
I enjoyed it until I was maybe 16. My
Okay.
voice started changing, and then that's when the pressure came on because people wanted me to continue to sing all these high songs.
Right.
And I was like, well, I wasn't, but my voice said no.
Right.
So we had to figure out how to make that challenge, but it actually made me shy away from singing.
Really?
Yeah, because it was very embarrassing because I couldn't sing that high. So
Right.
I shied away from it until I got back to DC. And even that has been a process of coming out of my shyness shell because of that.
Right.
So yeah, church really gave me the tools I needed to be in front of audiences. Yeah.
So when did you make the jump to actually looking to record music? Were you performing with other people? Like when you were at Howard, did you like once you graduated, all of a sudden said, you know what, I want to pursue this a little bit more seriously? How'd that happen?
I guess it was around 2001. I started singing background for other artists.
Okay.
And that was fun for me. I actually enjoyed singing in the background more than being in the front.
Really? Why is that?
I think I was a background singer in my past life. I don't know. But it's just I enjoy supporting other artists vocally. And I think that comes from studying people like Whitney and Luther. If you listen to their background vocals, they were on point. And I think I reference those people because their backgrounds were incredible. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so
It's funny because both of them actually started off singing background.
Started singing background.
I remember hearing a song by Shaka Khan. I can't remember which one it was. But Luther was singing in the background, and you could hear his voice above everybody else's. It was just that pure.
Yeah. So it was, background for me is where I really started off once I got here. And then around 2005, I just kind of started playing around in the studio. I didn't know what that was going to be. I went in to record a cover. And
what cover was that?
More Than Anything by Lamar Campbell. It's a gospel song.
Okay.
It's pretty much a church staple.
Right.
And I was just playing around, but everybody was just like, yo, you need to record. So I don't know that I was necessarily attempting to do that, but I kind of got pushed into it, and I allowed myself to be pushed into it, and then it just kind of started going from there. So
that when you started working on your first album?
Yes.
Okay.
The very first song that I wrote for the first album, A Natural Contrast, was entitled Guess What? I actually wrote that with two of my friends, Jamal Moore and Nicholas Gant. I actually recorded that song like maybe 30 times before I got it right. Because it was my first song. I didn't really know what I was doing. But Guess What was the first song.
Well, we actually have to go to break. When we come back, though, we'll talk more about A Natural Contrast and your follow-up album, Finally. So make sure you stick around with us. We're going to have more from Trey Thomas right after this. Welcome back to Using Vibes, everyone. I am still sitting here with Trey Thomas. We're talking about his first album, A Natural Contrast. And so you're saying that the first song on that album that you did, you took 30 times to get it right. Why did it take so long to get that song right?
I couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it. I just didn't have the feel. I'm a feel person.
Right.
And if it doesn't feel right to me, then I can't use it. So it took 30 times. And the last time I went to New York, and I actually delegated the producer job to someone else.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, you produce this vocally, and I'll just sing.
Right.
Because I'm not getting the job done. And I think it took 2 takes.
Oh, after
and it
that,
was
really?
done. Yeah,
okay.
It was done. And it was, Guess What is actually one of my favorite songs to perform.
Really?
Yeah, just because of the message. is one of my favorite songs, especially live with my singers, because they really convey the song the way that I really want it to be conveyed. So yeah, it's one of my favorite songs.
Now, what about in the first album? Did you do most of the writing on the album, or were you working with other people with the production as well as the writing?
I had a hand in the production. Most of the writing I did do.
Okay.
I had a co-writer who was actually one of my main producers, Xavier Jackson. He's in Dallas. But most of the writing I did. I really wanted to get my pen out, you know. So I did most of the writing on both albums, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So let's jump into Finally.
Yeah.
So where did Finally come from?
Man, the album.
Because you had a break. You went from 2008 when you did A Natural Contrast to 2012 now. So you're 4 years older, 4 years more mature, 4 more years experienced, and you had Finally come out. And so how did that happen?
Well, you know, finally, I really wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Which was?
R&B.
Okay.
I wanted to stay true to who I was in terms of me being, having a message of love, but I really wanted it to have an R&B feel, because that's just what I know artistically. So that album was a challenge.
How was
in
that?
terms of time. Like A Natural Contrast, I did in 3 months. It took me 2.5 years to get finally done.
From beginning to end?
From beginning to end.
Really? Why is that? What happened?
There were just so many elements. Things weren't working. People didn't work out. So it was just, it was a challenge, and a lot of it happened for a reason. I needed to go through those lessons. So finally, it's really my baby. It's my heart, because the lyrics are just, it's a love album, and so I really wanted to convey that to my audience.
Now, in terms of your audience, how do you balance being a Christian artist and being an R&B artist? Because in one aspect, maybe you might turn off those R&B listeners who don't want to hear the Christian message, versus those Christian listeners who may not want to hear the R&B sound. How do you balance that? How do you keep your audience together?
Very good question. I think I play a very fine line, and so with that, I'm very delicate with both sides.
Okay.
And so if you listen to the music, you'll hear. I'm not one of those artists. I don't want to say those artists, but I'm not an artist who kind of like beats you over the head with like Jesus.
Right.
That's just not my approach, because I know that's not where everybody is.
Right.
And so because my audience is so wide ranged, I just kind of keep everything very simple. So I talk about love, and love is
universal.
Right. And so you kind of can take from it where you are and what you want. So and I think people respect that, because I'm clear about who I am. I'm clear about what the message is, but I'm not forcing it on you. And so I think people respect that, and people respect the way that I approach it and deliver it as well. So I think that's the balance. The approach is my balance.
Well, you were talking about being shy earlier. Do you prefer producing the album inside the studio, or do you prefer being on stage performing the music?
I prefer being on stage,
Okay.
but I really enjoy producing.
Okay.
That's just, I like producing it, and then I like going to perform it.
See, like the creative side of it,
Yeah.
actually creating the music, but then actually being in front of people, actually showing them what you did.
Feel of the live, because the feel of live is just where I am, you know.
I know I'm a ham. I love being in front of audiences too, so I understand.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
So, yeah, I love the creativity of it. I love that. But there's nothing like being in front of your audience and them feeling you feeling them,
Right.
and they actually accept what you're doing. There's nothing like that, so I enjoy it.
Great. Well, before we go, why don't you tell everyone where they can find out more about you?
Okay, you can go to TariiqThomas.com, www.TariiqThomas.com. I'm on iTunes, MySpace. Yes, people still use my face.
Yeah, right.
Everywhere, anywhere that's online, I'm there.
Okay.
In terms of buying the product, but TariiqThomas.com will send you everywhere.
Okay, cool. You heard it from him directly. I'd like to thank him for being on, but before we go out, we can have another performance from Tariiq Thomas right after this.
In the world that's moving fast, people try to kill me resources don't seem to last. Of the master plan to rearrange the things that need to be. You're doing something new in me, and I'll forever trust you.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. If you want to find out more information about our guest, Mr. Trey Thomas, make sure you check out our website, FusionVibes.com. Until next time, my name is Tariiq Omari Walton, and here is the final performance by Mr. Trey Thomas.
It's interesting. As we go through life, many of us are on a plight to find love and in search of love. But I would like to submit that if the moment we find love inside of ourselves, it will be easy for us to love ourselves. It will be easy for us to love each other. And ultimately, it will be easy for us to love God. So listen, this song is entitled Finally, and we just want you to rock with us a little bit. You can snap, you can clap, you can sing along. Finally, here we go. Listen. Seeking, searching, praying for you to come and love the hurt away, take the pain away. But I realize you've been here waiting all along for me to open up my heart. Now I sing this song. I Yes, I finally found someone
who really loves me. You are my life, my heart's desire. I finally found someone to love.
Giving, loving, sharing our hearts in time. You bring brighter days. Don't ever leave, please stay. Never did I imagine I'd feel this way, that my heart could ever feel this way. And finally, you.
I could love like this.
Oh no, no, no. Someone. You are my life, my heart's desire. Yeah.
Finally found someone to love.
Listen, no more sleepless nights and no more emptiness. Your love has captured me and filled me up complete. I found my place in you. I found my eternity too. And I am here with you. And you are here with me. Yeah. I never knew. I finally found someone. Oh, you are my life, my heart's desire.
Finally found
I never knew that I could feel like this. Yeah.
finally found someone who really loves me.
You are my life, my heart's desire. Yeah.
Finally found someone to love.
I never knew. Just snap your hands like this.
Like this.
I